Canada's election interference watchdog flagged a coordinated campaign by a Chinese state media outlet promoting coverage of Liberal leader Mark Carney.
The candidate nominated by the Liberals to replace disgraced MP Paul Chiang was videotaped singing an anthem glorifying communist China.
A new real estate study found that most Canadians desire single-detached homes and not condos when buying a new house. Hello Canada, it's Tuesday, April 8th, and this is the True North Daily Brief. I'm Cosmin, Dzsurdzsa.
And I'm Geoff Knight.
We've got you covered with all the news you need to know. Let's discuss the top stories of the day and the True North exclusives you won't hear anywhere else. The task force dedicated to securing Canada's elections from foreign interference announced it has detected a coordinated campaign by a Chinese Communist Party-backed news channel to promote coverage of Liberal leader Mark Carney. Amplified coverage of Carney includes posts identifying him as a, quote, rock star and highlighting his pro-China views. On Monday, the Security and Intelligence Threats to Elections Task Force revealed it had, quote, detected a state-backed Chinese WeChat news platform has been attempting to, quote, influence the Chinese diaspora's views of Carney. Attempts include amplifying his experience and credentials.
We are aware of an information operation targeting the 45th general election on the social media platform WeChat. The information operation was launched by Yoli Yomien, WeChat's most popular news account. Intelligence reporting links the Yoli Yomien account to the PRC, Chinese Communist Party's Central Political and Legal Affairs Commission. The content of this information operation contains story about the Prime Minister, Liberal Party of Canada leader, and candidate in Nepean, Mark Carney. This content has been amplified in a coordinated and inauthentic way. This information operation had contrasting positive and negative narratives, first amplifying Mr. Carney's stance with the United States, and then targeting his experience and credentials. The site task force assesses that the foreign state-backed information operation was intended to influence Canadian Chinese communities and look to mold perceptions about the candidate.
The task force included links to Yoli Yumien, which saw the publication referring to Carney as a, quote, tough prime minister to deal with U.S. President Donald Trump, a, quote, rock star economist, and that he plans to deepen, quote, economic and trade cooperation with China as the first technocratic prime minister in Canadian history. According to the task force, the Chinese state influence operation first amplified Carney's, quote, stance with the United States and then boosted, quote, his experience and credentials. The Chinese state-backed news account Yuli Yumien has a history of targeting members of parliament in the past, including Michael Chong in 2023 and more recently Chrystia Freeland during the Liberal leadership race in January. WeChat is a popular Chinese-language messaging platform used worldwide by over 1.3 billion people. I think one of the contrasting points for Canadian voters between Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre is attitudes towards China. Now, the Conservatives have been uncompromising when it comes to Chinese interference. They've wanted to decouple the Canadian economy as much as possible from China. And I'd like to remind people we are currently facing multiple tariffs from China. China is, in many senses of the word, engaged in an economic war with Canada and Canadian industry. So for the Liberals to continuously present themselves as wanting to deepen economic ties, more trade relationships with China, having more lax attitudes towards China, and we've seen this in the past with their refusal to actually implement a foreign agent registry, it does raise a lot of concerns, especially among Chinese diaspora dissident groups, including Hong Kong Watch, which is quoted in this article if you check out the piece on our website. But Geoff, what are some of the other concerning examples of Carney's attitude or views that he's expressed towards China?
Yeah, Cosmin, Mark Carney's track record on China raises some serious red flags. For one, he recently stood by former Liberal MP Paul Chiang after Chiang suggested kidnapping a conservative rival to claim a bounty from the Chinese government. On March 31st, Carney called it a teachable moment after Chiang apologized, but his decision to keep Chiang as a candidate, despite the gravity of the comment, suggests a troubling leniency towards actions that align with Chinese interests. It's a stance that makes you question how firm he'd be against Beijing in general. Then there's his time in the private sector. While chair of Brookfield Asset Management, Carney allegedly secured a $250 million loan from a Chinese state-owned bank in late 2024, just weeks after reportedly meeting with the deputy governor of the People's Bank of China. This was right after Justin Trudeau named him chair of an economic growth task force on September 9th, 2024. This is a timeline that screams potential conflict of interest. Brookfield, under Carney's watch, also held over $3 billion in investments tied to Chinese state-linked firms, including real estate and energy deals, which only deepens the concern about his financial ties to China. Carney's own words don't help his case either. Back in 2016, while speaking at the Toronto Board of Trade, he gushed about China, saying one of the many strengths of China is their perspective, and praised their ambitious leadership for creating profit opportunities in their so-called green capital market. It's the kind of glowing rhetoric that sounds more like a sales pitch rather than a critical assessment of a foreign regime known for its authoritarian grip. The Liberal candidate picked to replace disgraced Liberal MP Paul Chiang in Markham Unionville was videotaped singing a patriotic Chinese communist anthem and was a board member of a private school flagged in Canada's recent foreign interference inquiry. The Liberals nominated former Toronto Police Service Deputy Chief Peter Ewan to replace Chiang in his former riding after the disgraced Liberal MP suggested supporters turn in a Conservative opponent to the Chinese embassy in return for a bounty. Videos have since emerged of Ewan singing My Chinese Heart, a Chinese communist patriotic song. The song has been frequently used by the People's Republic of China to impose its nationalism onto minority communities. Buddhist monks were forced to sing the song to celebrate the 70th anniversary of Communist China. In the video, Ewan can be seen singing the patriotic anthem while in police regalia. Ewan also joined the board of NOIC Academy in 2024, a private school flagged by Canada's independent investigation into foreign interference, the Hogue Commission. NOIC Academy was cited by intelligence reports for suspected election meddling concerns. The intelligence report suggested that the Toronto Chinese consulate pressured students by threatening their families in China if they didn't vote for preferred candidate in Don Valley North, the riding of Hong Kong dissident and conservative candidate Joe Tay. Ewan was brought in only after Chiang stepped down due to public backlash, when reports emerged that he had suggested to Chinese media that anyone could kidnap Tay and take him to the Chinese consulate for a bounty. Tay was born in Hong Kong, a region now under control by the CCP with increasingly limited freedoms, something that Tay has fought against publicly in the media. So, Cosmin, did intelligence authorities have anything else to say about this situation?
Yeah, so this all roots back to Han Dong's nomination meeting. And if you recall back in the day when the China interference allegations first came out about the 2021 and 2019 election, it was alleged that students, international students, were bussed out to Han Dong's nomination meeting with the Liberal Party and where he was nominated as the Liberal candidate. And while Dong has denied any wrongdoing or interference on his own part, there was a declassified CSIS summary that pinpointed NOIC Academy, suggesting and alleging that somehow international students were issued veiled threats by the Chinese government, either people tied to the Chinese consulate or the Chinese government itself, to go and participate. And it's unclear. There has been no specific names or individuals named in this particular instance, but this was CSIS intelligence that was being provided to the government. And that resulted in appearance of mentions to this student issue, international student issue, in several studies, including the Hogue Commission. Among the threats that were quoted or cited by the media, including the Globe and Mail, was that students were threatened with their student visas being canceled, or also their families in China facing discipline or consequences if they didn't do what the Chinese government said. And we know this is the modus operandi of the Chinese government. That's what they rely on to clamp down on any dissidents in the Chinese diaspora. They threatened them with, diplomatic consequences like having their visa canceled, or personal consequences like seeing their family at home suffer. A new survey shows that most Canadians want single-detached homes and prioritize having a backyard as a priority when considering buying a new house. A new survey by Wahi, a team of real estate experts, found that having a backyard is the single most important home feature for the majority of Canadians. The survey ranked 27 different housing attributes and amenities. The survey reads, quote, more than 3/4, 81% of Canadians say that if they were in the market for a new home to rent or own, a backyard is important. Additionally, a majority of respondents said they wanted a single-family home at 61%, compared to the 24% who said they preferred living in a condo or apartment. Another cohort of 11% said they weren't sure, while 4% were considering other options. Another highly desired feature among Canadians is a separate entrance. Meanwhile, another important feature was to have a finished basement, which they strongly preferred at 42%. This may in part be due to their desire to rent out a portion of their home to alleviate mortgage costs. 39% said that having a parking garage was a desired attribute. Geoff, we're well into the election campaign now. Both parties have presented a vision. It might not be their full policy. We haven't seen their full platforms out yet, but they've made a lot of statements and announcements related to housing. How do these policies compare when we're talking about the two leading parties, the Conservatives and the Liberals?
The Conservatives, under Pierre Poilievre, are laser focused on speeding up home building and cutting costs for buyers. They're offering a tax cut for homes under $1.3 million, which gives buyers a bit more breathing room. They're also tying federal funding to results. Cities have to boost home building by 15% annually or they lose cash, with penalties stacking up each year that they fall short. There's an incentive for them too. They're offering building bonuses for cities that exceed targets. To tackle delays, they're slashing six-figure salaries for bureaucrats who stall approvals, and they're mandating that the CMHC greenlights projects within 60 days or faces consequences. It's a plan that aims to get more single-family homes built faster by clearing out red tape and incentivizing construction, which aligns better with the survey's findings on what Canadians want. On the other hand, the Liberals' big policy is a tax cut for homes under $1 million, lifted straight from the Conservatives, but with a lower cap so that it helps fewer buyers. Beyond that, their plan falls flat on addressing the root issues. They're not tackling the red tape or the gatekeepers blocking development, and the CMHC is still a mess, delaying approvals while handing out millions in bonuses to staff, even as housing prices soar. So instead of streamlining, they're creating a new bureaucracy called Build Canada Homes, which sounds more like government bloat to me.
That's it for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in. You can stay on top of new episodes every weekday by subscribing to the Daily Brief on iTunes and Spotify. Also, while you're at it, make sure to hit us with a 5-star rating and please leave a review.